Cheryl.
Let's start doing some intros, she's saying.
You're asking for your introductions, intro?
Yes.
Who would you like to start, Cheryl?
Hi, I'm Sharon Anderson.
Chair, the chairperson.
Daryl.
Okay.
Daryl.
I'm Daryl. I'm the 911 program manager, and I administer the 911 advisory task force. And this is a meeting of the Equal Access Committee of the 911 advisory task force.
Dan.
Dan,
Yes, this is Dan Heller. I'm president of DeafLink.
nice to see you.
I can see you. Thank you. Billy.
Hi, guys. I'm Billy. I'm Director of Programs and Operations here at the Center for Independence of Western Slopes area.
Kurt.
I am Kurt Garrett. I'm the Disaster Preparedness Coordinator for Atlantis Community Inc. Center for Independent Living that serves 7 counties in the Denver metro area.
Julia.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Julia Beams with the University of Colorado Denver's Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering, and I provide emergency preparedness trainings for consumers as well as first responders and emergency managers.
I missed the name.
Bonnie,
I believe that was me. And I am the 911 or the director for the Colorado 911 Resource Center.
Interpreter did not understand.
the
Earl, are
So
you
what she's
asking
saying
who
next
the-
is the 911 center.
Yeah. So the person who just signed on is 911 center. Can you introduce yourself? Maybe we skip them, Cheryl, and come back.
Next,
Jeremy.
Hey, Daryl and crew, this is Jeremy Duncan with Pitkin County 911. Just saw the short notice meeting and thought I'd jump in and help out, support where I can. So appreciate it, Cheryl, and look forward to your presentation. You're welcome.
Todd. Todd.
Todd, yep. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Todd Holsworth. I'm the fire chief up in Winter Park, Colorado, and similar, I'm just interested in your, the presentation today and see what I can learn. I'm also on the 911 Authority Board for Grand County.
Okay, go for it. Got it. So, thank you very much. My name is Kay, and the last name's Chido. Chiodo, unless you're Italian and you know it's Kyoto, which sounds Oriental. So I don't want to confuse anyone. So just call me Kay. And I'm very blessed today to have this opportunity, thanks to Cheryl. And I want to let y'all know that I've been working with Bear Metro 911 here in Texas with the deaf community that has helped us with removing barriers for working with entities like FEMA, the WIA, the Wireless Emergency Alert System, IPAWS, several different, projects that we've worked on. And y'all will be actually the first group that will hear what we're talking about. So your feedback is going to be really important to me. So I want to warn you up front, this is all Cheryl's fault. I am very interactive. Please don't hold your questions. I prefer you interrupt me. I don't want you to hold them and then forget at the end. One of the things that I'm learning, I'm coming from the perspective of working with deaf, blind, hard of hearing individuals, sensory disabled. And I grew up with deaf and deaf blind, which only makes me a dedicated employee. I work for all of them, basically. I've been very blessed. I have a couple of companies and a nonprofit. The nonprofit is No Barriers Communications, and it's called NOBACOM, NOBACOMM.org, if you want to check that out. And that's pretty much what we do, is we find where the gaps are, and sometimes we're able to fix them with a minimal amount of work, but not usually. And one of the interesting things that we're going to go through in my PowerPoint is what we're learning with 911. Y'all have to remember, y'all are the experts on 911. Actually, I'm not an expert on anything. So what we're doing with Bear Metro is we have been bringing the deaf community. We've had like, I don't even know how many, we call them pastries, tours, and prizes. We meet for coffee and pastry. They get a tour of the 911 center, which they have no clue. A lot of them didn't even know a 911 center existed. So the feedback we're getting of the barriers that they're facing when they're trying to text to 911, it goes on both sides. It's not just the deaf community, the deaf blind or the blind. It happens to your operators. I don't know if you call them operators, but the people that work in your call centers. So again, This is something, I want this to be interactive. I can talk about the barriers and y'all can help and bring to me some really great solutions as well. I like your cat, Cheryl. So anyway, Daryl has been kind enough to do my PowerPoint for me. And I want to tell you my other company, which is called DeafLink. We are sole source provider for accessible alerts across the United States. And what that means, that if you're a deaf person and you depend on ASL, those text messages mean nothing. So we're going to get into this. And as you can see, I have a little bit of Cheryl's personality and I'm trying to keep it under control. As it says, this is going to be fun, at least for me. So text to 911 is for the deaf, deafblind, hard of hearing, and speech impaired. I did not put that word impaired on there. We usually say we don't use the word impaired. A lot of people would beat me up over that. But let's go through. This is something I've pulled off the internet, except for the little arrogant smiley face I put on the phone. You'll hear me talk about emojis. Go ahead, Daryl, that's great. Throughout this. And the first thing I want us to discuss is what you need to know about sign language. I don't know how many of you know, Billy, you don't count. So first of all, ASL, even though it's called American Sign Language, it has no roots in English. It's the third most taught foreign language in our colleges today. Unique syntax, grammar. You know, I've had people say, oh, it's more like Spanish, right? Maybe to some degree, but, and it's one of the few languages in the world that has no orthography. See, I told the wrong interpreter how to spell orthography. ORTHOGRAPHY, because that was my big word and I wanted to use that, which means writing system. Sign language has no writing system behind it. It's one of the few languages in the world that isn't written. It's a visual, gestural, and conceptual language. And a lot of hearing people think, and yeah, I'm looking at Billy's little thing that popped up, I'm sorry. And it's not a manual form of English on your hands. So, and I apologize, I have BRI calls coming in about no access to voting on my phone, so bear with me. One of the things that growing up that I found interesting is a lot of my deaf friends would say, no, that's one of those $10 hearing words, one of those big words. And it yeah, and Cheryl, I can't see you with, but I don't know if the interpreters can see.
ROAD, road. RO.
Read, READ, read.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to put my phone up here in case you want to text me. And Dan, I'm sorry to do this in the middle of this presentation, but Yinter, who is the deaf employee, would you send him the link to this? He just got back. So can you send him the link to this so he can get on?
Yes.
And the challenge is that I believe across the nation, a lot of people who are hearing, they just don't get the complexity of the American language. And ASL actually is I have here more precise than spoken English. And a good example, when you're talking about, I went running, and you do the sign for running, or, you know, I ran. That's the sign. It's still running. But if you talk about your computer running, you know, and it's a totally different sign. When you talk about your nose running, sorry, good example though. So in our English language, there's no distinction of those words except how it's used in a sentence. So, but the spelling is the same. So learning this language can be a challenge even for people who are hearing as they're growing up. The same thing for the word present, P-R-E-S-E-N-T. I'm present. Here's a present. You know, it's a very complicated language. And I hear a lot of people say, and I've heard this in speaking with people and working with 911 with the stuff we've been doing. Well, didn't they go to school? Yep, they do. There's an interpreter required by federal law from pre-K through college or wherever anyone else goes. And what they're signing, again, is not English on your hands. It is a visual gestural language. Let me back up. Not all people who are deaf have trouble reading and writing English. I have had people work with me who are born deaf that were much better at writing English than me. So, but the general population that we're talking about today, and I don't like averages. You know, I've heard all kind of averages. Oh, well, the general population of deaf have, you know, 3rd to 4th grade reading level, you know, 2nd to 5th grade. No, that needs to stop, because being deaf is like, you don't ask someone, well, how much do you need a wheelchair ramp? Or how, you know, why do you need Braille? Can't you see just a little bit to figure this out? Well, that's kind of how the deaf are starting to feel about this, if not throughout history. The fact their language is different than ours. Same thing for Spanish. I live in Texas, trust me. I can't say a full sentence, but that doesn't mean I cannot communicate clearly. So we deal with this, and it's just an education thing. Once people realize it has no written structure behind it, it's a foreign language taught in our colleges, it seems to make a little more sense. Okay, Daryl, you want to go to the next one? And this is something we, you know, my friends gets asked a lot. Well, I don't want to say deaf to them. You know, I don't want to hurt their feelings. No, that's respectful. You know, I hate when I have to sign deaf and mute. And again, it's because the general population doesn't know this. And the same thing, you know, if a person who's deaf, blind, low vision, hard of hearing, if you're not sure that if you have to actually say, you know, they need this access because they're deaf, would you please provide it? But if you're not sure, ask them. 99% of people with sensory disabilities will be more than happy to tell you the proper way to address them. And that's not being rude, it's being respectful. Okay, Daryl, thank you. Now, I don't know how many of you that work in 911 area realize how people make phone calls who are deaf. And I've actually had a couple of ADA attorneys in my office for 5 hours, one of them, who's an awesome person, but she had never seen what it takes for someone who's deaf to make a phone call. And they, even on their cell phone, they can have the same service on their cell phones and be able to call, order pizza, you know, call their doctor's office, just like you and I can, except they're going through that interpreter that's on the screen that is basically has a headset on, and she's voicing and making the call for them. And she just relays it in a voice. Sometimes you know, it's a little unusual when someone calls up and say, hi, this is Mary Alice, and it's a deep male voice. But, and people who are deaf have the option of saying to the interpreter on the screen, I don't want you to say that I'm deaf. And people, well, why would they do that? I'd like to tell you why, and I'm very blunt, so bear with me. A lot of times doctor's office said, well, I'm sorry, we're not accepting any more new patients because they don't want the responsibility of having to provide an interpreter. We deal with this in our nonprofit probably 5-6 times a week. So they do have that option, but this is a simple way that they can make a phone call to anywhere that we can. And people say, oh, it's free. Deaf says, oh, this is free. Well, actually a little bit, fraction of a cent comes off of your phone bill, and it's through an FCC fund. Okay, Daryl. Now this is a terrible picture, but this is an employee with their boss, and he's being explained something about work. This is something the boss or the business would be paying for. The interpreter comes up, it's VRI, video remote interpreting. And that's an offsite interpreter, could be come up from anywhere in the United States and would be interpreting whatever the employer is talking to the person who's deaf. It's all of these services have just been fantastic and opened up a lot of the world that wasn't open to the deaf community before this. Okay, Daryl. Now, I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with the devices for people who are blind, but Larry Johnson, who works with me in our nonprofit, he's one of our staff. He has a Braille note taker, which it's aggravating when I say something and he can go back. He goes, no, it's right here in my notes. You said that. But also this one here is a screen Braille communicator where someone who's hearing or hearing, you can tell I usually work with people who are deaf, who may need to talk to someone who's deaf blind. They can type it in and they can read it on that small refresh Braille device that's on their side. So technology today is amazing, what can be done and the doors it's opened. Okay, Daryl, next slide, please. I put this in here because, first of all, I think she's kind of like a shero to me, Ann Sullivan and Helen Keller. And it's interesting, most people don't know that almost everything she signed to Ann, Helen Keller signed to Ann, was through ABCs. So Ann Sullivan had a pretty good vocabulary of words, which not all people who are deaf that rely on sign language have that. And I'm sure, and Billy's on this call, I'm sure he grew up hearing this. I grew up hearing it, and with the deaf I grew up with. And it's like, oh, but I know my ABCs. That's great. But if you're spelling words like evacuate, E-V-A-C-U-A-T-E, and we did this with FEMA when we were talking about accessible alerts. We had 30 people who were deaf in a room, very different degrees of education. And out of the 30 people, all we did was hold up the word written on a cardboard piece of paper and asked, do you know what it means, this word? Well, in the first group of 30, there were 2 people that raised their hand. And Salima LaForce with Georgia Tech, who works with the FEMA grant we were working under, said, okay, well, what does it mean? And so the interpreter voiced for him. Well, it means evaluate. You look around, fine, everything looks fine. So we're okay to stay, it's safe. And when they said, no, that's not what the word is, the second person put their hand down. This is not because they're not intelligent. If you held it up in Spanish, or if you did it in sign language, the reverse would happen because it is not this particular person's language and it's just not going to mean anything to them. So that's great that this, Ann Sullivan was able to communicate mainly through signed words. But this is not the case for the general deaf population who relies on ASL. Okay, Daryl. This is just, a lot of people have never seen tactile signing. And this is just a slight example of it. And I apologize. I didn't ask before I started my presentation if I had anyone who needed me to describe these pictures on this call. And if I do, please tell me now. So this is just, as I said, an example of what tactile signing looks like. People who are deaf blind that depend totally on tactile ASL are not going to be calling 911. They may have someone else call 911 or text to 911. I'd like to share with you some of the experiences, what we've been bringing in the groups that we've been working with Bear Metro 911 and the deaf community. We had deaf blind show up at a lot of our events to tell us that someone in their family would call 911 for them in a situation. But when the EMS or the police would show up and they would ask, please send a tactile interpreter. No interpreter. It was kind of unanimous because we asked the groups, how many people in this room feel that you need to blame 911 because you didn't have an interpreter show up for you? All the hands went up. And they were blaming 911. And they said, well, we told her she's the person or he's the person we talked to. We said, must have interpreter. Well, the police or the EMS show up and they couldn't ask the mom who was deaf, did your child take, did she take something? Does she have any medical issues or anything that they might ask, a mother who is hearing or who was sighted and can communicate? It's very frustrating. So this is one of the gaps that we heard constantly throughout our gathering of information between the sensory disabled community and 911. Okay, Daryl, please. So that was what we're talking about, what the average person who's deaf or deafblind, what do they know about 911? We did in the first 90 plus people, because we did them in, I'd say, events of about 30, because it was difficult to do tours of the 911 center if the groups were really large. So when 30 people came, they'd divide them in half. And at Bear Metro, it's really kind of cool. They'd take them upstairs. They had the windows that they'd push a button and the fog or whatever's in the windows would clear out. You could see down in the call center. Pretty high tech. This was the first time that some of the people in these groups, they're going 911, they don't work from home, or they were asked, they had no clue. These are the people that they come to my house when I call. Nope. So their knowledge about 911 was extremely limited. And the ones that did have some semblance of knowledge, where did they get it? And we're going to get into that. So can we go to the next slide, please? This was some of the questions that we were asked during bringing in this segment of our population. Do I have to register my cell phone? If so, how do I do it? What if I don't understand the words that the people And some of them were saying it as I was looking down on the call center. Do you have someone there who's deaf that's going to be able to assign to me? No, this is text. Well, what do I do if I don't know the words? What do we do if they don't understand the words I'm trying to write? And then one of the big questions, the two right here, is why they, 911, not do what I ask. And the lady whose name is Zelina that works with 911 here in Bexar County said, what do you mean? She said, you never send me an interpreter. My husband had a stroke. I need it. He's deaf. I'm deaf. You never send an interpreter. They show up and it was a mess. So those are really two of the biggest complaints we would hear. And trust me, they had a lot of questions that I don't have the answer for. And currently, a lot of the 911 people we're working with do not have the answers either. So that's something that y'all might be able to help with as we're building this solution. Okay, Daryl, please. I took this off the internet just to warn y'all. This is the second time I've seen this since yesterday, this PowerPoint. I kind of threw it together. Again, that's Cheryl's fault. I pulled this off the web. This is an old video. And her last name is Singleton. She's actually a deaf lady that works for the FCC in Washington. And, you know, if this video is captioned and voiced, why is she signing? Well, first of all, she's deaf. And because this video really is targeting the deaf community. Now, I want y'all to know what it says on there. It says, although text to 911 is generally not available yet. Remember, this is old. The FCC will help to keep you informed about its progress and this very important service. Let me tell you what I had to do to find this. First of all, I know who the FCC is. This was a question that the 911 group was talking about. What government? Do you know about the FCC that supports your relay services, this and this? No, no, the general deaf population is not going to go to a website and look for a video. First of all, why? That website's not accessible. Everything's in those words, and they got those $10 words on there. It's just not going to happen, especially the groups. When we were bringing people in from the deaf community, we didn't say, oh, we don't want deaf to come in who have a high level of reading and writing English. We didn't say that. We opened it up. But the ones that were really hungry for this information were the ones that really depend on their language, their primary language, ASL. So let's go to the next slide. I pulled another segment from this video, and this kind of interested me, and I probably need some feedback from y'all because, again, 911's, I'm learning, and trust me, I know about this much. Cheryl knows more sign language than I know about what y'all do. So this says, by texting 911, so the first part of that sentence is cut off. It says, right now, you should not only rely on text for reaching 911, you should continue to make a voice relay or TTY call to 911. When you sign that, it comes off as, yeah, go ahead and you can text to 911, but you need to kind of almost back it up by doing a relay call through an interpreter. So I don't know how many times that means you would call 911 at the same given time that you text, but I found that a little bit confusing. And again, I left this where you could see how many views was on it. 8,495. in San Antonio, Texas, not the county, just in the city of San Antonio, the Department of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services says about 8% of people are deaf, deafblind, basically sensory disabilities. That's a little over 116,000. That's just San Antonio. So if this is on a website that's basically national information, it only has 8,459 views, and that was even, it's been up there since 2014.
Hi.
Yes.
Daryl. Mhm.
How many?
Yep. Thank you.
So Cheryl, I saw your chat message.
Oh, I
Um,
don't have it up, so Daryl, work with me here.
Yeah, that's fine. So Cheryl asked me if I could say how many counties have text to 911 in Colorado, I assume. I don't have the map up in front of me, but last I checked, it was around 10 counties left that don't have text to 911. So that would be 54 out of our 64 counties do have text to 911.
Wow.
You know, and as far as what she's saying here in this slide, you know, where she says you should not rely only on text to 911 for reaching 911. I think to some extent that applies more to people who can make a voice call normally, because it is usually faster to process a 911 call if the call taker can talk to the person verbally. The call processing time is around 2.5 minutes for a voice 911 call and around 7 to 8 minutes for a text to 911 call, simply because of how text works, where you have to send the message, wait for the other person to read it, and then type a response back. So it takes longer for them to do the back and forth on a text to 911 call. So the wording here that she used in this video, I think, is a little confusing, maybe.
Yeah.
But the catchphrase that 911 centers use a lot is, they say, "Call if you can, text if you must," is the catchphrase that they use, because they would prefer people to use a voice call if they can, but if they can't, text to 911 is there to help people who can't make those voice calls.
Right. And it's interesting because, like you said, this is confusing, but as we go through this, I want something that's even more confusing for the communities that we serve. Finding this, because I was curious, what are they putting out there for the deaf community? Now, word of hand, like word of mouth in the hearing community, word of hand, pretty good in the deaf community. Trust me. I can meet new deaf people in Texas and they go, "Oh yeah, you're Kay. You did this and this and this and divorced and house and get." So I have this lineage. And so word of hand is pretty strong. And so they share information. And the sad thing is that some of this information, some know, it's, to me, this is not correct. But then there's things they don't know. Like, let's go to the next slide. And like I said, please feel free to interrupt me if you can at any time. Now, this is something I pulled off the web because I had heard something like it in our meetings with the deaf community. And y'all, this is my question to you. If my car breaks down, will y'all send someone, an officer or somebody to come fix it for me? Nobody's gonna tell me? You won't hurt my feelings. Daryl, will y'all send a car?
What were you asking? If a police officer would fix your car?
If I, look, this is a video made and put up, not by us, it's out there. Car broke down, need tow truck. Well, it goes to a 911 call center, because this is about 911, this video. And see, she's smiling because it says down here, evidently they have her cell sector location provided by network, latitude, longitude. Those are $10 hearing words. The deaf that I know, the majority of them, some of these things aren't going to work for them, but it says, is your vehicle out of the roadway? First of all, the word vehicle. Nope, that just isn't going to happen. I mean, for a lot of people for the people who are deaf that rely on ASL for clear and effective communication, it ain't going to happen. And out of the roadway. What kind of vehicle is it? First of all, they got to figure out what that word means. Evidently, this lady texting this is got it under control, because she's saying, yes, I'm off to the side. So she's writing English. That is not something that normally a deaf person is going to text back who's ASL based. And she put Toyota and says, I will have an officer respond out to your location. Well, and that's pretty much what this video had. Okay, have fun at the dentist, Cheryl. Don't be whiny. Okay, bye. So this video that's out there gives the impression that 911 is going to send someone to fix my car.
Well,
So, go
yeah,
ahead.
so I was going to say the office, I don't know of any place where the officer will fix your car, but they might send an officer out to make sure that you're out of the roadway and stand by until the tow truck comes. It really kind of depends on where this happens and who the responding agency is for that area.
So, and that's something that I wanted to encourage y'all for the work that y'all do. More information needs to be put out there to your population. Make these videos, make them clear, make them precise, and address these things. You know, if you need help and your car breaks down and you're in a dangerous situation, whatever it is 911 would say on their video, because mine would say, we'll bring you a Coke Zero too. But start getting this information out to your community, because if they were in a situation where they could only text to you, maybe their phone's dead, they had to borrow their 4-year-olds that's been playing games on an old one and try and text to y'all. They may think that you're going to come out and take care of it. And if you did come out and they're deaf and you're standing there thinking, well, you know, the officer's been dispatched by 911. I'm out here with this deaf lady with this child. I'm trying to text on her phone to ask her, do you have a tow company that you use? And she's looking at me like, because reading that text that he might have just texted her wouldn't make any sense without an interpreter being there. Do I have a simple solution for this today? Not right now. We're working on it. But those are things that as 911, y'all need to be prepared to know, as well as the officer. Now, I have a question for y'all before I go to the next slide. I was told that you can't ask if they have a disability. Is that true?
That might be a good question for one of the other 911 people on the line to answer, because since I haven't worked in one of the centers in a long time. So Todd or Jeremy, do you have any insight from your centers?
This is Kurt with Atlantis. You can ask if they have the disability, you just can't ask what their disability is.
Okay.
You can't ask them to prove it.
Oh, right. Okay. So, and Billy helped me with this. The people that are my friends and my family, they would be quick to say, you know, I'm deaf, ASL me, period. If someone does tell you they're deaf, That's going to give you a little more insight to why these words they're typing back may not make any sense to you without, and don't get me wrong, I get text messages from people who are deaf that I lay my phone down and sign it and watch like, I think that's what they mean. But to look at it as a written English text, sometimes I don't get it because they're trying to use my language. It'd be the same as someone who doesn't sign, trying to sign something to someone who's deaf, who's going, So let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is something I didn't know. I guess y'all know this, that when you text to 911, you can't use emojis? Really? Is that true?
It depends on what kind of text solution you're using, but yes, in a lot of cases, the only thing that comes through is the text itself, no pictures, no emojis.
Okay, well, I have friends who, and I'm going to give you an example in a couple of other slides I'll use this, that if they didn't have an emoji in there, and not that I get what they're saying, because everyone's perception of a picture or an emoji or a symbol can vary. So this is something that, again, this video is on a website that no one's going to find who depends totally on ASL. They are not searching the web. Majority of my friends, family, whatever, that are deaf, they have internet in their house so they can do video calls. Most of them don't even have a computer. They have video, a VP, a video phone that usually is furnished to them free. I don't know if y'all know that, through providers like Sorensen or Purple. They will give you the equipment to make video calls, because the more you make, the more money they're making off the FCC, which, don't get me wrong, this is a fantastic service. So a lot of people are deaf. They don't have computers. They're not going to go to the website to find this stuff. So they don't know that you're not getting these emojis. Again, this is recommendations working together. Let's get this information out, not just in a general sense, but get it out and find a solution. Because if I'm a deaf mom and I'm at home with a 4-year-old and someone, I seen someone down the hall and I don't know who they are, and I'm in my bedroom with a dresser trying to push open the door, and the only thing I can do is text to you because I don't have my phone, just my 4-year-old's who plays games on it, but yet it's still connected to the internet. We're going to have some problems. And I say that because now I'm going to put y'all on the spot. If I text help to you, can you go to the next one, Daryl? I think that might be it. No. We'll get back to that. This is go to, pass that one up, we'll go back. Go to the next one. I'm trying my best to use your written language, but I don't know these words. I used basically some of what I've been texted before. I got a text that said, "Me cry." That came up on my phone. If I'm signing it, okay. And 911, evidently y'all say, this is 911. What is your emergency? Well, first of all, we already got a problem, and I didn't put a red marker up there, with the word emergency. That's one of those big words. And we've gone through this with FEMA and IPAWS, Integrated Public Alert and Warning Systems, with Homeland Security. Those are words that the general deaf population and people with literacy challenges, those are words, I don't know what you're saying. So, and this again is a text off of one that I've received. Me. Yes, that's how she spelled heart. Heart. Bad. Cry. You go, me go. Now, if you see it, but to just see it like that, basically her name was Tamitha, and she was having a heart attack. Well, she didn't know she was having a heart attack, but if 911 is your standard answer, can you tell me the location of the accident? Which I'm sure I don't know what y'all would text in this situation. Those are words. So one of the things that Bear Metro 911 told me, and I need y'all to help me with this, is it y'all have a standard of questions you have to ask, and how you ask them, you can't change it? Is that the situation?
It's really going to depend on the call center. A lot of call centers have questions pre-built for text to 911, but I don't. They're all using different systems right now, so it's going to be different in every center.
Wow, and that's kind of what Bear Metro 911 told me, that they have where they can click and it sends out a message that quick. There's going to be a real issue with this. And I think that for the operator to know that one of the 911 operators, when we were started these discussions here, was going, well, I would think that'd be like a kid or something trying to play a prank. Well, wouldn't you maybe think it's someone who has, a literacy of a particular language challenge? And the last one, Sarah Me Cry Bad. Now, if you watch me, after I give you my name, which me. Now see, that's a visual, and I'm saying my name, me, and cry, and it's bad. So they're trying to put it into a written language. And I think this is something that your operators, I don't know how they handle it, because I'm sure that it's already happened in call centers all across the nation, that people are trying to send a text. And it may be at some point where, and we had deaf say that, they go, no, I just wouldn't do it. But what if that was your only option? Anyway, y'all see where I'm going with this. Let's go back up to the other slide, Daryl.
Can I ask a quick question about this? So, under the example you have here, you've got the 911 center asking the location. Would most deaf callers or deaf people who are using text to 911, would they be able to provide their address if asked? Because we don't get very good location information on these a lot of times.
The word address is much better than location. And then even if hearing people are going to, if you text, where are you at? Basically in ASL, that's still not their structure, how it would be signed, but you, where? They're going to pick where are you? And I know that that can mean someone saying, well, I'm in my house, or I'm in my car. But the word location is just, that's a big word for a lot of people who are deaf that don't use, written English. And the word address, and I've got an interpreter on there. To sign address, go ahead and sign it. The interpreter can sign the address. Address. Doesn't even, again, and even if, where do you live? If you use, this visual language is basically coming and butting heads with a written language in a situation where your life may be on the line. And I think it's an education that needs to happen on both sides, not just the 911 centers and the operators who get this and go, oh my God, come over here and look what I've got, what do I do with this? As with the deaf, if you come together, and someone texted something and I missed it. Daryl, what did someone make a comment?
Yenter 2 says where address ? Equals location, and what happened ? Equals accident.
Yeah, and Yinter, hello Yinter. Yinter's, he's on my team, and thank you. So this is basically, it's a big concern. What y'all do every day is so important, and the services, without a doubt, save lives. And this is a segment of the population that needs to know more about you and about how to make this work better for those that find themselves in a situation where that language barrier may cost them their lives. So can we go up one more, Daryl, and see if about the cute little slide with emojis on it? Oh, no, I think up one more. Okay, this one. I'm gonna owe Daryl a lot of margaritas, I know that. Okay. Emojis play a big, big part in the communication on text with people who are deaf that really just don't know the words. It's interesting because the one that has, y'all did this for Call Me, you know, this one, Call Me. I've literally had to ask, what did that mean when you did this? And I don't know, I think they did this and sent me a picture of a house. Call my house, call you, what? No, now, this is a sign for now, and that one hand, now, house. In other words, now, come over to my house now. No, but using these, remember, it's a matter of perspective. You know, everybody's perspective is different. And the one where down here, it's the hands together, I think that is like pray. I see that used a lot by deaf for please. I've seen the hands for please, now. Now, interesting, the one with the little halo and the wings. I've actually had that text to me and mom, M-O-M, after the emoji. I don't know. Turns out their mom passed away and they had to call EMS through 911. So, and I didn't get that one. It really, that one went right over my head, but she died. Ooh, mom. And the same thing for the crossed fingers and the box. Hope. Hope what? You get a box? No. Hope that I get a job. UPS, they pay a lot of money. I mean, so again, it's perspective. I didn't know the little emoji with the purple shirt, the girl, that meant deaf. I couldn't figure out why someone kept sending me that. Now, I'm going to be, I don't know if this is off color or not, Daryl, I apologize in advance. The one like this, and it's really not funny. That's sent to me by someone who's deaf, and followed up is the word bad and J-A-I-L, it should have been bad jail need. What? Because the sign for lesbian is this. And that is like, but this person thought that someone was making fun of them. So again, perspective, but they use a ton of emojis because they're trying to avoid, or not trying to avoid, because they're not going to be able to text the words that they're trying to say. Okay, I think, did we miss the one above that, Daryl? I'm going to get a long letter from Daryl after this. Was there one above it, or did we get it?
Another slide above it, you mean?
Yeah.
I think
Okay,
we saw this one.
Okay.
And then there was this one.
This is a gentleman who is telling people video relay calls are the best and fastest way to call 911. I agree. If you're deaf, I agree. But also, he's educating a little bit. You can't text to 911 and put your mom and Bob and Gina on there. And he's saying that you can't add videos. During COVID, our nonprofit got, like I said, a lot of calls because people couldn't access information about food banks on websites. We got videos. If I can't communicate with you in Spanish or Swahili, but yet I can send you a video and show you something, whether it's my kid and point to them and go, you're going to know the kid's throwing up. I hope you would know that. But this is something a lot of people who are deaf don't know. This video is very old. It's years and years old. I've never even seen it before. So again, consider making information. Oh, I even put the link to it on there. And if you need it, I'm sure Daryl or Cheryl will give you that link. These are things that need to be redone and disseminated into your community through your deaf groups. How many of you know that most deaf people across the nation have a deaf coffee chat? I think it's like every 4th Friday of the month or something where they get together. That's where the word of hand comes into play, because they share all kinds of information at these events. Find those. They're all across the nation. They're in your town, in your city, more than one place. Reach out to your community. Let's educate them on this. And okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, we've already done that one. This is an example because I talk about access. And this is from one of our clients where they use accessible alerts. What we told them is, you can't offer your community accessible alerts and say, well, go to the website and sign up. That website's not accessible. This is an example of accessible information to sign up for something. Can I get you to play just part of it, Daryl?
We'll see if this works.
And it may be jerky because
accessible alerts in American Sign Language for Harris County in 2 ways.
Now watch what it will do.
Just want to receive alerts to your mobile phone. You can text the word "ready" to phone number 281-609-9093. Alerts will then be sent to your phone as a text message with a link to the ASL video. If you want to receive alerts as text messages to your phone and also receive alerts in an email, first, enter your cell phone number in the mobile phone number box.
Okay, you can pause it there. And the reason why, because you notice there's more than one phone number on this right here. And if you couldn't read all those other words that go along with this, well, what number are they talking about? Is it this one here I text to? And when you actually do sign up for accessible alerts and you're asking for an email on your phone or a text message, when you touch that, it comes up in sign language and is voiced, and the text beneath it is Braille accessible. So, but in order to get to having that service, you got to know how to get there. And these are things that we're seeing the challenges with 911 and just the communications between the community and the operators. Okay, you can go ahead to the next one. So, and this is basically what it comes down to. Talk to your deaf-blind communities. and get to know each other. Educating them about using 911 is not something they're going to get off your website unless it's all voice and in sign language and Braille accessible. Those are the barriers. And here's the interesting thing. This segment of your population is most often your most vulnerable. I mean, let's face it, years and years and years ago, I'm very old, so I can say that. There was someone who decided that they would help people who were deaf, and were trying to get them to put stickers on back their car so the police would know I'm deaf. Oh, no. Problem was that whether it be someone who wanted to break into your house or a pedophile who may be watching your child, that's awesome. They're deaf parents. And it really caused some real issues. And it's funny because these are your most vulnerable. I was texted by a gentleman and his wife. He was very ill and he's deafblind. And they had called through Relay 911. Relay operator was awesome. And they told the operator, I'm deaf. My husband's deafblind. Please, begging, please send an interpreter. I think maybe he will die. Well, they also text me, they had called through Relay. They text me a text I could not understand. I went anyway, I wasn't too far from there. EMS shows up. Totally, like the gentleman said, they called a supervisor to that location. What do? We can't talk to them. And it was really sad. So we helped. Yenter, I can't remember if you were at that with me. I know somebody was. Do you know a simple solution? If you have any influence on your EMS services, your fire department, they can have a laptop in their ambulance. All they got to do is click a button and bring up VRI, video remote interpreter, turn it around. Tell me where it hurts. Have you been taking medication? You've got an interpreter there. It's not going to help with the deaf-blind man, but the wife could help answer those questions. And if someone is deaf-blind or deaf and they're requesting an interpreter, what do y'all do? How many of you know that you get that request in your call center? And Yenter's saying, yes, it is not simply, it's not simple. So do you get calls in your call center and they say, someone else says, please tell the police to bring an interpreter or send an interpreter, or they ask you directly for the interpreter? Have y'all ran into that? Geez, y'all are so quiet. Come on.
We have a number of 911 folks on the phone. Any of you have any idea what would happen if if a caller requested a interpreter when they called 911?
This is Connie. I can tell you, speaking from a small dispatch center, those resources would be extremely limited, and we would try to find if we had something available through those services. But to call somebody separately to respond, again, it would be an extremely limited resource.
Okay. And Connie, when they call, and help me, because remember, I'm not a 911 person. After this, trust me, y'all would never hire me anyway. But if I'm deaf and I call and say, my husband's sick, he's struggling to breathe, please send someone, and I need an interpreter. And they've not, I would say most of the time they're going to say I'm deaf. So what y'all do is, do you call the EMS people? You call the police department? Walk me through what you do on your side.
On our side, we give as much information as we're getting so that the responders are aware of this and know what they're, if we're getting the information, they're getting the information.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so,
The
Go
only,
ahead.
the only thing I would add to that is, every center is a little bit different. This isn't a standard protocol that is in place in every 911 center or every responding agency. I would say, in some responding agencies, they would relay that information to the police department or fire department, or whichever agency is responding. And if they have a policy for how to get an interpreter, they might activate that, or it might be up to the 911 center to do it. One thing that, anyone who's taken 911 calls, what becomes obvious quickly is that you've got to get somebody out there right away, right? It's usually within 4 to 10 minutes for a fire department, for instance. But if you're calling somebody to go to the scene to serve as an interpreter, it's probably going to take longer than that to get them out there, just because of how many you have in the area and how far away they live from wherever the scene is.
yeah, and Billy just said he had an ambulance ride to an ER with an iPad with an interpreter. Here in San Antonio, our police department has DefLink VRI. Well, I'm trying to be politically correct, which is totally not my thing. Most of the police forget they have it. I mean, come on. And I don't know if y'all know this, but I'm going to give you real life stories, not just about the deaf wife and the deafblind husband. There was a gentleman who, he and his wife, who was like 7-8 months pregnant, or fiance rather, were staying with his mom and her boyfriend. Well, he and his fiance are deaf, and she already has a 2-year-old, which is his. And the boyfriend of the mom and the boyfriend was trying to get across, from what the deaf man told me, that, and I have permission to share this, so I'm not breaking any confidentiality. This is something he wants people to understand, that he was upset because they were eating too much of their food, and he was banging on the table, and he was doing this, and he was pointing to the pregnant lady and doing, which of course she was big, she's pregnant. But then he went and got a gun, a handgun, and pointed it at her stomach. Well, the deaf gentleman was trying to diffuse the situation and calm down. Well, his fiance is a little bit frisky on that, and she went and got her iPad and called 911 through relay. Well, the mom of the deaf man went over to the fiance and shut the laptop down. And told her, the mom didn't sign, neither did the boyfriend. So again, the pregnant lady who's deaf, tried to call 911. Well, the call went through the relay just enough to contact the police department, and they showed up. Well, guess who the police department will talk to if they show up without an interpreter or having it on their iPad or laptop in their car? They talk to the hearing person. And I know we're going to use that word common sense, but let's don't, because it's not in the story. They take the deaf man, handcuff him, and put him in jail for 3 days without an interpreter, leaving his pregnant fiance in this situation with a 2-year-old. Now, this officer had access to his laptop in his car, but he forgot about it. And she wasn't able to request an interpreter because someone kept shutting it down. I guess y'all can pull the address or what miracles y'all do when someone actually calls and that happens through a relay operator. The gentleman went to court several times. I managed to get a record of the relay calls. Can't tell you how I got that, or I'd have to kill you. That's private. But it was a struggle to prove that, no, all because of no communication. So police officers, EMS, as Billy said, they can have that readily available. And again, this is a community that's begging for access, not only to your services, but when someone shows up. So, and when I said earlier that, you know, they're blaming 911, we said need, interpreter need. It's not your responsibility to provide that interpreter. It's the EMS, it's the law enforcement, it's the fire department. Now, if someone set up funds to give you that and y'all had a list of interpreters for someone who's deaf blind that you could send out a tactical, that's awesome. If y'all had funds for that. But in all honesty, because it is last minute and it's critical, it's important. Those laptops will make all the difference in the world. I mean, would deaf prefer to have a live interpreter standing there? Probably 90% of the time. But in those situations, communication right now is better than none. But this is something that we know the 911 centers that we're working with are getting asked that. And they go, well, you know, I told them, or someone says, well, no, I didn't pass that on because that's not something we do. Again, it's getting with your disability community and getting that partnership established where y'all can train both ways. So let's go to the next slide, which is, this is a fun one. When I was talking about Bear Metro 911 that we do stuff with, we put this out to the community, and years before we even got our transit company. It's called Via Trans. Thank you. Actually, Yenter is Y-E-N-T-E-R, sign name Yenter, is on their council. But it's interesting because if you put your phone, I'm going to take my phone. If you put your phone on that QR code, let me impress you with my technical ability here. Usually I can do it on, come on. I can't believe I can't do it on this. Well, if you put your phone on the QR code, that information that's on that paper is going to come up in a video and it's going to be signed. It's voice for people who are blind. So, and clipping off the right side of this corner where it says clip off people who are blind. I'm the one that did that. It's supposed to be clip off for people who are blind. Please don't go clipping off people who are blind. That's going to come back to me. If you cut that corner off, then no matter where how that page is turned, the right-hand side with that is always going to be where our QR codes are. And you put the phone on it, it will come up voiced and in sign language. So even printed material is accessible. And this is about their coffee, pastry, prizes, and tours at their call center. And I have learned a lot, not enough yet from 911 because I'm just starting to learn the procedures. So we can help develop solutions to all the things we've been talking about right now. And some of them will require technology, kind of like our accessible alerts that we do with DeafLink. But we can only do a better job when we have the information from people like you. I mean, you deal with this every day. I'm on the other side of this coin. I work with the community that needs your services, and your services are so critical. Let's go to the next slide. Yay. man, I can talk. Cheryl is right. So your time, thank you. And I'm really shocked y'all didn't have more questions. Come on, y'all really a nice group. Any questions before we close?
They're shy. I don't have any questions, but I think this is a very important topic, and one that I'm going to suggest to Cheryl that we bring back at future meetings. I do know that we have had some training in the past for 911 centers on how to communicate with people who are deaf or hard of hearing or have other communications disabilities. But I don't know that most of the 911 centers are aware that that training exists, and I don't know that they've refreshed it in a long time. So that may be one direction that we go. But I'm really interested in the other part of that, which is, because it's not easy, but we can train our people at the 911 centers. What we don't necessarily have as much practice with is providing education to these communities that may not get education through normal means. If we do a public service announcement, will they see it? Will they hear it? And if they don't, then how do we reach out to those communities? And I'm assuming that the organization that Billy works with, the Center for Independence, would be a resource to talk to about that. But I think that's something we should explore in more detail.
I think that's great. And Billy, better than me, would know that if the flexibility is there with individual 911 centers, I am a state certified interpreter. I'm not the greatest interpreter. Let me tell you, I grew up with home signs. So that doesn't mean a lot to some of y'all, but those are signs created between deaf and hearing people and families. And it's interesting because one of the things that I do as an interpreter, that no matter what you say, like the word orthography, it's a writing system. Taking those big words, and when I say big words, location, where, and bringing them down to those smaller words, if you're able to do that. If someone on a text message says, deaf me, to know that, to know the better way to proceed with them is really important. And that's something that Billy's, organization would definitely be wonderful at. And Billy, I'd love to have you involved with what we're doing, because we're setting up hopefully some national training, and I'd love to steal you for that. Just warning you in advance, because I'm a nice person. But learning a way of rewording those things, and it's not hard, just bring it down to the most simplest. And I don't mean that as an insult to someone who's deaf, but when someone who's deaf signing to you, they're going to bring their signs down to help you. Like if you here in Texas, if you eat, it's going to be spicy. So anyway, thank you so much for your time. Don't go and complain to Cheryl, or I will find you and hurt you. So y'all have a good day. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you this long.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any last minute questions or comments for Kay or anyone else? Well, thank you very much. I will send this presentation out to the group, and I do think that we will be revisiting this topic at future meetings, because I think it's an important one, and one where this committee in particular should have a lot of interest, because it's specifically at that intersection of disabilities and accessible needs and 911. So
Yes.
yeah.
Pull
thank
in
you
your
very much.
disability community. Teach them what you do, let them teach you what they need. So
Awesome.
thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks. And everybody else, I'll go ahead and close the meeting because we are out of time and I've got another meeting to get to, but thank you very much for joining. And I will be putting the video for this up on the task force's YouTube channel as well. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.